I only read one book, but it's a good book, don't you know? I act the way I act because the good book tells me so. If I want to know how to be good, it's to the good book that I go. Because the good book is a book, and it is good, and it's a book.
And he being Jacob, who had that night visited Big Jaime's house of hummus, restaurant, bar and grill, and was at the time taking a dump in one of the stalls in the men's room, heard the words of Laban's sons, who had entered within abruptly to water the plants, saying, Jacob hath taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's hath he gotten all this glory. For they did not know the rule that did state that it shall always be so that when those family members, who are not important enough that we do know their identity, do speak harshly of members of the family that be named, then it shall be certain that he that they doth talk about shall be sitting silently in a stall just 6 cubits behind them, and shall hear every word. And later, when he did come out of the men's room, and did see his father-in-law sat away from him at his favourite table, surrounded by his bodyguards, Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not towards him, as before. And he did know that Laban did know about him milking his cattle racket, fleecing him over the sheep, and getting his goat. And the Lord, who, though this day was packing heat, did not want to get into a gun battle in such a public space, and said unto Jacob, Return unto the land of thy fathers, and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. For he did know that the rumble was up, and 'tis was but only a while before Laban did send his boys looking for the 2 of them, and they would both be wearing concrete boots at the bottom of the Jordan River by nightfall. And Jacob, who did know the contract put out on him by the family would include them, now sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field unto his flock, where they would be out in the open, but in relative safety. And said unto them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not towards me as before, but the God of my father hath been with me. And the 2 of them did look unto one another, and then unto him, with fear in their hearts, when they did hear him mention he that was known as the God of the Father. And ye know that with all my power I have served your father, and that not have I talked unto the Farm Animal Breeders' Institution regarding the experiments that I hath conducted with stripy sticks. And your father hath deceived me, and changed my wages 10 times, but God suffered him not to hurt me, for I did enjoy his protection, and mine activities were overlooked, for I did always ensure that he did make a tidy profit, and I was smiled upon for it. If he said thus, The speckled shall be thy wages, then all the cattle bear speckled. And if he said thus, The ring-streeped shall be thy hire, then bear all the cattle ring-streeped. Surely, as a casino owner, he should know that 'tis not my fault that these things do happen this way. Surely he shouldst know that sometimes the house just loses, no matter how much the dices are loaded and the cards are marked in its favour. Yet I am to take the blame for it. Surely those men that doth sit all night in the black ox cart with the blacked-out curtains that be parked across the road from our tent do wait for the word to be given, and lo, we shall be as Jimmy Hoffa. Thus God hath taken away the cattle of your father, and given them to me, and who am I to disagree with God the Father, when he doth decide what shall happen in the family, though surely I doth suspect that he be setting me up for a fall. And it came to pass, at the time that the cattle conceived, that I lifted up mine eyes, and saw in a dream, and, behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ring-streeped, speckled, and grizzled. And the rams did have sharp pointy teeth and glowing eyes, and they did leap upon the cattle, and did tear them unto shreds, leaving their mutilated bodies strewn about the pasture. And those that doth believe in small green demons, who doth ride around in chariots that doth resemble bin-lids, will think that the demons doth do it, and it would be as if something that the 2 who will be known as Mulder and Scully will look into in the scrolls that will be marked with the number 10. And the angel of God spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I did peer out from betwixt the branches of the wibble-wobble-wibble tree, in which I was hiding. And I said, Here am I. And he said, List up now thine eyes, and see all the rams which leap upon the cattle are ring-streaked, speckled, and grizzled. For I have seen all that Laban doeth unto thee. And he did lean in closer unto me, and did inquire of me what the hell vampire goats jumping around and leaping upon cattle did have to do with fleeing from the mafia after I had been caught with my hand in the till. I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointest the pillar, and where thou vowedest a vow unto me. And you did visit me on the day of my daughter's wedding, as a friend, and did show us me great respect. Now arise, get thee out of this land, and return unto the land of thy kindred, lest thee find thyself being part of the foundations of a bridge. And Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, Is there yet any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? For, being both stereotypical women as well as Jewish women at that, all they did care about was money and shiny things. Are we not counted of him strangers? For he hath sold us, and hath quite devoured also our money, pissing it away on huge amounts of drugs, flash cars and dancing girls, and nights at the opera as well as Vegas nightclubs and casinos. For all the riches which God hath taken from our father, that is ours, and our children's. Now then, whatsoever God hath said unto thee, do. For thou should always obey what the God of the Father doth instruct you to do, lest thee end up sleeping with the fishes. Then Jacob rose up, and set his sons and his wives upon camels, and did look towards all of his sheep, and did instruct them to get the flock out of there. And he carried away all his cattle, and all his goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting, which he had gotten in Padamaram. For he did have a big bag, which would be the kind of bag that would one day be used by characters in what would be known as computer games. For it would be possible to put an almost endless number of heavy and bulky items in such a bag, and still be able to lift it with ease, for to go to Isaac, his father, in the land of Canaan. And Laban went to shear his sheep, which is about the first time in this narrative that he hath actually heard of him actually doing anything useful. And Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's, for she did grab her father's photo albums and did leg it. And Jacob stole away unawares to Laban the Syrian, in that he told him not that he fled, which is generally a good thing to do when thou art fleeing from someone, for it doth give us thou a head start. So he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and passed over the river, and set his face towards the Mount Gilead, and he looked back behind him, and did see that there was no one tailing him, be that men loyal to the family, or the Farm Animals Breeders' Institute. And it was told Laban on the third day, while he was in Hymie's house of Hummus, that Jacob was fled. And Laban did go ape, and did empty an entire clip into the wine waiter before he did threaten to feed Hymie unto the pigs, if he did know anything about Jacob's disappearance. And he did go on an extended rant about his daughter's wedding, and what they did in the olden days back in the old country, which is exactly where he still was, having never left. And he did instruct Hymie to put his hummus in a bag to go, and he went. And he took his brethren with him, mainly because when you wanted a dirty job done, these particular brethren were the ones you took with you to do it. And they checked their weapons, and got into the ox cart with Laban, and pursued him after 7 days' journey. And they overtook him in the Mount Gilead, mainly because they had a tailwind, and they were going downhill. And they did stop, and they did wait. And God, being God of Jacob's father, came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night, and he did sit quietly in the shadows across the tent from Laban, wearing a black tuxedo, a white shirt, and a black bow tie, stuffing his mouth with bread rolls until his cheeks did puff out on both sides, and he could hardly talk. And then he did look over to Laban, and said unto him, Thou beest of the old country, where thou didst earn great respect as the head of the family, and that is why we doth sit here talking. And I hath not instructed Gabriel here to shootest thee right between thine eyes, while thou art sleeping, or takest thee out into the desert, and separatest thee from thy limbs. That's because I know that thou art a smart man. Thou hath been running the family business over here back east for years, so thee doth know the rules, and thou is not some cheap bunk running numbers and a string of hookers out of Brooklyn. I am here to give unto thee an offer that thou shalt be unable to refuse. And Laban did lower his head, and the God of Jacob's father did continue. Years ago I sent Jacob unto thee to work, and with him at thine side thou hast prospered. Thou hast prospered because of me. Capiche? Now, if I feel that it is time to collect, and Jacob shall end up with all of thine cattle, then that's the way that this shall happen. Because Jacob shall be working for me, and when Jacob shall be working for thee, then thee shall be working for me also. Doth we have us an understanding? And Laban did understand entirely. Now, I art happy with business over here back east, and I wouldst not want to have to goest and find someone else to look after the family's interests here. So, when thou doth see Jacob tomorrow, thou art going to give him the same respect that thou would givest unto me, because I hath got plans for Jacob, which is why I did tell him to head off back west unto his father, and maybe run things out there in the desert for a while. And I wouldn't as want anyone getting in the way of that. So when thou dost see him next, take heed that thou speak not to Jacob, either good or bad. Then Laban overtook Jacob, which they had already done the day before. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mount, and Laban with his brethren pitched in the mount of Gilead. And eventually Jacob and Laban did come out of their tents, and did walk over to meet one another, flanked by their bodyguards on either side, and lo, there was a standoff. And finally Laban said to Jacob, What hast thou done? That thou hast stolen away unawares to me, and carried away my daughters as captive, taken with the sword. And several of Jacob's compatriots did reach unto their jackets, as if to take something out, but did stop when Jacob did raise his hand unto them, and he did allow Laban to rephrase the question. Wherefore didst thou flee away secretly, and steal away from me, and didst not tell me? That I might have sent thee away with mirth, and with songs, with tabret, and with harp, and we could have shared a couple of cold ones together, as father and son, or uncle and nephew, or even brothers, which admittedly all appear to be accurate and valid descriptions of our relationship, given the numerous descriptions of our lineage in this narrative. And hast not suffered me to kiss my sons and my daughters. Thou hast now done foolishly in so doing. And Jacob's compatriots did reach once more into their jackets, as did Laban's, but he did gesture unto them as Jacob had done previously, and then did continue. It is in the power of my hand to do you hurt. But the God of your father spake unto me yesternight, saying, Take thou heed that thou speak not to Jacob, either good or bad. And it was explained unto me that this was an offer that I was unable to refuse. And now, though thou wouldest needs be gone, because thou sore longest after thy father's house, and thou art following the instructions of the God of thy father, yet wherefore hast thou stolen my gods? Which, for those that might be wondering, did include a framed photograph of someone called Frank Sinatra, which had been signed with the words, To my good friend Laban, here's doing it your way, give my love to the family, a picture of the back of someone's head, taken through what did appear to be a telescopic gun sight, which when turned over did have the words, View from the grassy knoll written on the back, and several pictures that did appear to show a man in a strange white suit, eating a sandwich while sat in front of a peculiar shiny metal contraption that did have the word NASA written on it. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, Because I was afraid. For I said, Peradventure, thou wouldest take by force thy daughters from me, even though I had worked for you for 14 years to purchase them, as though they were just some kind of property, which could be bought and sold. With whomsoever thou findest thy gods, let him not live. For they have shown me no honour, and if thou shalt not do it, then I shall take a contract out on them myself. Before our brethren, discern thou what is thine with me, and take it to thee. For, like all stories such as this, the real tragedy was that Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen them. And Laban went into Jacob's tent, and into Leah's tent, and into the two maidservants' tents, but he found them not. Then went he out of Leah's tent, and entered into Rachel's tent, and then things did start to get tense, and the 50-piece orchestra that had set up just outside camp did start to play apprehensive music. Now, Rachel had taken the images, and put them in the camels' furniture, because they were so well off that the camels had chairs, tables, and a bed also. And she sat upon them, and Laban searched all the tent, but found them not. And she said to her father, Let it not displease my lord, that I cannot rise up before thee, for the custom of women is upon me, which is to sit us down on my arse and eat cake while watching soaps and chat shows on daytime television. And he searched but found not the images. And Jacob was wroth, and chode with Laban. And Jacob answered, and did saunter up to him, and did walk around him, and then did draw his weapon, and did pounce upon him, and said to Laban, So tell me, what is my trespass? What is my sin, that thou hast so hotly pursued after me? Thou art coming awfully close to not needing those pictures, for thou shalt soon be seeing thine gods in person. Whereas thou hast searched all my stuff. What hast thou found of all thy household stuff? Set it here before my brethren and thy brethren, that they may judge betwixt us both. And Laban did look sorrowful and apologetic unto Jacob, and Jacob did tell him that he had made an accusation against one who was hand chosen by the God of his father in person, in front of the family, so he had better have something to back it up. And he did turn on Laban, and did take his piece, and did place it firmly against Laban's temple, and did say, This 20 years have I been with thee. Thy ewes and thy she-goats have not cast their young, and the rams of thy flock have I not eaten. Thou hast prospered, because of the protection that was given unto me was extended unto thee also. That which was torn of beasts I brought not unto thee, I bear the loss of it. Of my hand didst thou require it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night, because even though you were in the insurance business, losses happen to other people, and not to you. And if the till was short at the end of the night, then whoever was looking after the store made up for the shortfall, or they ended up being dumped in an alleyway with the back of their head missing, and he pressed the barrel harder against his head, until his face was against the earth. Thus I was. In the day the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from mine eyes. I have done my share of the dirty work. So if you think that I won't like getting my hands dirty, then you are wrong. And Laban started to cry. Thus have I been 20 years in thy house. I served thee 14 years for thy 2 daughters, paid for, fair and square, the ugly one that can't stop being pregnant, and the pretty one that can't start, and 6 years for thy cattle, and as many sheep and goats as I could carry, and thou hast changed my wages 10 times. Except the God of my father, the God of Abraham and the fear of Isaac, had been with me. Surely thou hadst sent me away now empty, and I would be heading back west with the shirt on my back and nothing else, because thou seem to be under the mistaken belief that I art someone's bitch, and that someone is you. God hath seen mine affliction, and the labour of mine hands, and rebuked thee yesternight. And Laban looked up from the dust, as Jacob did take away the gun from the back of his head, and answered and said unto Jacob, These daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these cattle are my cattle, and all that thou seest is mine. And what can I do this day unto these my daughters, or unto their children which they have borne? And Jacob did say unto Laban, I think you will find that I have just made my last payment. And Laban did check the payment schedule, and lo, Jacob was correct, and Laban did continue. Now, therefore, come thou, let us make a covenant, I and thou, a gentleman's agreement, in the presence of the others, for we are surely reasonable men, and members of the family should not be so grievous against each other, when such a simple misunderstanding can be resolved so easily, and let it be for a witness between me and thee. And Jacob did think for a minute, then took a stone, and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said unto his brethren, Gather stones. And they took stones, and made an heap, and Laban did start to get worried that he might end up under the heap, and they did eat there upon the heap. And Laban called it Jegar Shahar Dutha, which doth mean witness pile in Aramaic. But Jacob called it Gilead, which doth mean witness pile in Hebrew. And the man who would one day come to read all this narrative in a literal and humorous way would, had he been there at the time, have suggested that they did just call the thing witness pile, and not give a damn what it was called in other languages, just as long as it meant witness pile. And Laban said, This heap is a witness between me and thee this day. Therefore was the name of it called Gilead. Mainly because Gilead was a lot easier to pronounce than whatever the hell Laban had said, and Laban did get the impression that, had he kept up his insistence, the matter would be resolved in a way that ensured that there were no witnesses, or at least any witnesses that were willing to testify. And Mizpah, which doth mean watchtower. For he said, The Lord watch between me and thee, when we are absent one from another. And Jacob did look around, and did ask where the Lord was, for he was nowhere to be found. And someone did mention that he was last seen heading off behind yonder rocks with a paperback copy of Modesty Blaze in one hand and a roll of toilet paper in the other, leaving his silenced automatic weapon behind. And Laban continued. If thou shalt afflict my daughters, or if thou shalt take other wives beside my daughters, no man is with us. See, God is witness betwixt me and thee. And Jacob could see that Laban's concern now was only for the well-being of his daughters, even though over the last few chapters he couldn't wait to get rid of them. And Laban said to Jacob, Behold this heap, and behold this pillar, which I have cast betwixt me and thee. And Jacob did give him a stern look, and did open his jacket, so that Laban did see his holstered weapon, and did point out that the pillar was his idea, and not Laban's. This heap be witness, and this pillar be witness, that I will not pass over this heap to thee, and that thou shalt not pass over this heap and this pillar unto me for harm. And lo, a truce was brokered between the two of them that day. And all did put away their weapons, and the Lord did come back from having a crap, and did not get shot by a boxer who was leaving town in a hurry. The God of Abraham, and the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge betwixt us. For it is said that the judgment of the God of the Father is swift, merciless, and brutal, and doth usually occur as a montage towards the end of the story, while lilting and beautiful classical music doth play. And Jacob sware by the fear of his father Isaac, for Isaac did fear the God of his father, mainly because in his younger years he had put out a contract on his life, which was only lifted at the last minute, when it did turn out that the man that had been contracted to carry out the hit was Isaac's own father. Then Jacob offered sacrifice upon the mount, and called his brethren to eat bread, and they did eat bread, and tarried all night in the mount, and did much enjoy lamb kebabs, which was a change from all the pasta that they were used to eating back home, or the bowlfuls of hummus at Jaime's house of hummus. And early in the morning Laban rose up, without finding that he had spent the night sleeping next to a severed camel's head, and kissed his sons and his daughters, and blessed them. And Laban departed, and returned unto his place. And when he did kiss them, Laban's sons did look confused, because they were under the impression that they would be going back home with him. And when it was explained unto them that they were going back home with him, and that the kiss he had given them was because Laban's daughters would be staying with Jacob, they did want to stay too. And after a montage that did denote the passage of time, accompanied with sad lilting music that would somehow remind anyone watching of a boxer who could have been a contender, showing scenes from the lives of Jacob and his family after they had left Laban that day, showing them in joyous celebration, dancing or eating great feast together around a crowded table. Laban, by now an old man, wearing his favourite hat and an old woolen cardigan, did put on his sunglasses to shield his tear-filled eyes, which welled up as he remembered the good times, as he did sit on a small wooden chair all alone outside his villa. And from afar a casual observer would have first seen an orange fall from his grasp, before his hand did fall down by his side, and when he did finally slump forward and collapse to the ground motionless, a small dog did mill nearby as the only witness to his final moments, and then things did fade to black.